you. So I will just share my screen as well. There we go. Okay, so I've dropped the link to this document in the chat, and it will be available afterwards as well. Just make that a bit bigger for folks as well. So hello. Today I'm going to be running through how you can build your own website or blog site using a tool called Hugo and publishing it on GitHub Pages. And this is how I publish my own website. So the things we're going to learn today is we're going to learn how to convert Markdown files into HTML content using Hugo. We're going to deploy that as static content to the internet using GitHub Pages. We're going to automate that deployment process using a continuous deployment process that's going to implement GitHub Actions. And then we're going to understand how you can embed external content into your blog using Hugo. So these are all of the requirements you will need for today. You'll need a GitHub account. We are going to be using the terminal. So I've got a few links there on how you access the terminal from your various operating systems. We're going to be using Git version control, and there's the installation guide there. As I said, we'll also be using Hugo, and I've linked to the installation guide. And then you need a text editor of your choice. And this one really is personal choice. So these are all you need. I know a couple of you haven't been able to get set up before this. That's absolutely fine. You can come back to this and go through it at your own pace, and always feel free to ping me questions on how to get set up. First question is, do I have to use the terminal? Actually, no. GitHub offers built-in Jekyll templates. And if you are fine using Jekyll and you are fine using a limited range of the templates, you can actually do this all through the GitHub browser interface. Jekyll is another tool for building static HTML content from Markdown in blog sites. But that's not the tool we're going to be using today. We're going to be using Hugo, and therefore we're kind of locked into using the terminal. Okay, Sarah, so why Hugo and not Jekyll if it's already integrated? I'm not going to read through all of this, but there's like 3 main points I've found from when I did used to build my site with Jekyll to now using Hugo that I think make Hugo the better choice. It makes for much cleaner repositories. As you can see from this screenshot, when I was using Jekyll on the left-hand side here, I had like loads and loads of files compared to on the right using Hugo. It's much more compact, and it's a bit clearer, like things go in content rather than this weird underscore posts folder. It's way faster to build Hugo than Jekyll. So this is my continuous deployment pipeline. You can see a couple of minutes building with Jekyll on the left, whereas it didn't even register a time output on Hugo because it was that fast. And Hugo has far fewer dependencies than Jekyll as well. Hugo is basically an extension of the Go language, whereas Jekyll requires Ruby, Ruby gems, bundler to install them, a compiler, all of these things, and it can be a really difficult environment to manage. And I was actually talking to Chris Holdgraf, who is project lead on the Jupyterbook project that builds the Turing Way, and he was just like, yeah, the reason I wrote the big grant to redesign Jupyterbook was because every time something went wrong when we were dependent on Jekyll, I needed to take like 3 days off to install Ruby. And so they redesigned Jupyterbook to be dependent on Sphinx and be Python based to be a more manageable environment. So, and yeah, this is actually the Whitaker Labs, Travis, at the minute. So my pitch for the end of this is going to be, can I rebuild the Whitaker Lab website using Hugo versus Jekyll? So yeah, so that's why I'm advocating for Hugo over Jekyll at the minute. So let's get started. And the first thing we're going to need is a repository on GitHub. And so as not to interfere with my currently deployed website, what I will be doing is I'm using another GitHub account that I own called Helm Upgrade Bot just to demonstrate today. So I've gone to github.com and I've signed in using my other account. Up here, I am going to click the plus button and I'm going to create a new repository by clicking new repository. And then I'm going to give my repository a specific name, which is the username of my account .github.io. And this is because this will act as like my main repository, but then I can, like my main website, but I can actually repeat this whole setting up process for all of the other projects I might have under this account. And the documentation and such will all appear at this helmupgrade.github.io/project name. So it's a nice way to like gather all of your projects together under kind of like one URL. And then this will act as the main one. So I'm just going to like give myself a nice little description. This needs to be a public repository. You can use GitHub Pages with private repositories, but it costs money. And I think you need to be on the enterprise account. So we're going to use the public one. I'm going to add a README. I'm going to ignore the git ignore at this point, but actually Hugo's very simple git ignore file. And I'm going to publish under an MIT license for demonstration purposes, but you might prefer something like CC by 4 because it's text content. And now that I'm happy with the setup of my repository, I'm going to create it. So I need to do an extra step here because I'm using a different account. This is not a step that anybody doing this for themselves needs to worry about. But I just need to give my normal account access to this so that I can push and pull as usual. So then I'm going to open up a new Chrome window where I will be logged in with my normal Git account. Because I'm in an incognito window over there. Accept invitation. And this just means I'll be able to push and pull to GitHub without having to switch around my accounts. So now I'm going to clone my repository locally. So I've clicked the green code button. I've made sure HTTPS is selected, and I've clicked this clipboard icon to copy this to my my clipboard. And this is the point in the tutorial where we move over to the terminal. So I have my iTerm app down here. Just open that up and stick it over there. And this is, now you need to decide where on your local machine you would like to keep your the local copy of your project. I have a source GitHub folder, and under there I actually do have, when my terminal decides to wake up, I think there we go. It has the same opinions of mornings as I do. So I have a source/GitHub folder where I keep all of my like GitHub clones and forks. And I actually already have a Helm Upgrade bot folder in there because I have a couple of other repositories from there. So then I am going to clone the repository into this folder using git clone. And I've just pasted the output. So this is just the git URL reference for the repository online. Clone into that folder. If I run list directory again, you see it should be there. Sorry, I'm just going to move my zoom bar out of the way. And then I'm going to change into that folder. So good, we're now up to step 5 here. So the first action when we're doing good Git flow is we're going to create a new branch to work on. So you do that doing the git checkout command, and I add -b to say, please create me a new branch. And I'm going to give that new branch the name setup Hugo. And now this is the point where we get to create our website. And this will be the first time we use the Hugo command, and it has a built-in template for creating a new site. And that is Hugo new site. I'm going to put a full stop to say I want you to create this new site right where I am now. And I need to use the force flag because actually if I run ls, this isn't an empty directory. I already have a license file and a readme file from when I've cloned the repository, and Hugo will complain that those exist. So the force flag just says, you know, do it anyway and ignore the fact that this isn't an empty directory, please. So I get this nice little output, my site's created, hooray. And it gives us a little bit of information on the next steps we're going to take. And if I run ls again, you'll see I now have all of these folders. So the blue words are directories, whereas the light colored words are files. So the next thing we're going to do is going to add a theme. And there is a website where you can list where like loads of free or paid for themes are available. But I've already picked one that we're going to use today, and that is called Anatoly. And we're going to add this using Git submodule. So what Git submodule does is we don't have to copy the entire repository because that's what this theme is. It is a GitHub repository. We don't have to copy all of that into our repository and like version control that. We actually just have a little file that says a .git submodule file that says, please use this reference of this repository, and sort of, and it kind of like does a checkout rather than like a full download of that. There's some opinions on whether Git submodule is like good. You can get into some tangles, but honestly, I think once you've like downloaded the theme, you don't need to do much more with it. If we're talking about you know, using Git submodule as like a project software dependency, then maybe I'd be less like frivolous about using it. But I think in this scenario it's fine. So this command is git submodule add. So it says, please create a new submodule. We have the GitHub URL again of the theme, and we're going to say, please download it into the themes/Anatoly website directory, sorry. So we run that, and again we get like a little clone, but it's just doing a checkout of the head. And if I run git status, you'll see it's added a git modules file, and it's updated the theme/Anatoly directory. But that's not enough. Just because it's in the directory, that doesn't mean it's going to get used. This is where we move on to configuring our site, and we have this file called config.toml. .toml is another markdown language. It's very similar to YAML and JSON in the terms of its key value pairs. So if I open this up, we have a couple of things already that I will edit in a second. But the command I need to tell to use the theme is theme equals Anatoly. So Hugo already knows that the themes directory exists, and that's where it's going to look for the theme. And then we just give it the title of the subdirectory in there of what the theme is. The other things we have here are the base URL. So I'm going to update this to where our site will be published, and that is actually the name of the repository. So helm upgrade bot.github.io. And I added a little S to the HTTP, which means this will be a secure connection, which GitHub gives you by default. I'm going to update my language to USGB. Another very important parameter to add is the enable emoji parameter. I know that'll be very important to lots of folks in the lab, and this will just render your emojis when the HTML is published. And then I'm going to create a new section here called params, and this is where we get into theme specific configuration. So this, if you decide to change the theme you're using, this might not always work. So I'm just going to copy the title line from up here under the params section. I'm going to give my site a cool title. I'm going to say authored by Helm Upgrade Bot. And my site description, automatic login from a GitHub bot. So you can see in this section of the docs that this is what we have over here in my terminal on the right. So now I'm going to save that. And I'm going to check that it works by using the Hugo Server command. So this runs the website locally, and it gives us a local host address here that when I click, opens up in a browser. And this is what my site will look like. It's a bit, oh, I've gone some like really street slang there with the blogging. So it's quite bare, but like we've started, we've got a website. So fabulous. So I'm going to close that window and I'm going to use Control-C to stop the server running. And now we're going to do some more Git version control and push this up to GitHub. So using Git status, we can see, so Git already knows about the Git modules and the themes Anatoly files and directories because they're in green. It does not yet know about archetypes and config.toml. So I'm going to use git add, and again, the full stop to say everything here. This isn't the best work. It's not my usual workflow, but it'll do for now. Now, if I run git status again, you'll see everything is now green. Git is ready to know and learn about changes in these files. The next thing I need to do is make a commit and say like, this is an encapsulation of the work I've done so far. I use that with the git commits command. And I use the flag -m to leave myself an informative message. And this is the initial setup of the blog site. And that gives me a little bit of a summary about the files that have been created and such. And if I run git status again, it now says you've got a clean tree. Like as far as Git is concerned, everything's up to date. But it's not up to date on GitHub. This is our local copy. So now we need to push those changes up to GitHub Server. And we do this with the git push command. We use the word origin, which is a reference to the repo that lives on GitHub Server. And then the second word is the name of the branch we've created locally. And what it represents in this command is create the branch upon the GitHub server and push these commits to that branch as well. So then we get a little output of the pushing. And you probably saw the website update in the background there. But if we go back onto GitHub, it automatically updated to say you've got a branch called Setup Hugo and it has some pushes and it gives you a compare and pull request button. And that's a shortcut to the pull request site. So we're going to, it's auto-filled the commit into the title for us. And I will just say that we are adding Hugo configuration. I cannot spell today. And theme to the repo. And then I create my pull request. So if we had any tests, this would be where they would run. We do not yet, but that will be what we do in the next section. So for now, I'm just going to go right ahead and merge this pull request by clicking merge pull request and then confirm. And then if we head back onto the landing page of the repository, which I always do by clicking code up here, you'll see that we have new files set up here. That's all great. That means the files that generate our site are up on GitHub, but that doesn't mean our site is live yet or deployed. So we're going to create our continuous deployment workflow next, but the first thing I need to do is update the local copy of my repository. So I do that by switching back to my default branch, which is main. I use, again, the git checkout command. This time I'm not using the -b flag because that's specifically for creating a new branch. This just is a switch. We check out main, and then we use git pull, and that will pull down changes onto our branch. So now our local copy is up to date with what's on GitHub. So continuous deployment, let's get this site on the internet. So the concept of continuous deployment, that as we will be using it here, is that for every change we merge into our GitHub repo onto the default branch, we want a fresh version of our website to be built and automatically deployed for us. And that's what we're going to achieve using GitHub Actions, which is GitHub's built-in continuous integration vendor. So again, we will create a new branch using git checkout, and this one I will call add CD, where CD is short for continuous deployment. GitHub Actions looks in a specific folder for files to run jobs for. We don't have to enable anything GitHub action related. We just need to create this folder and put a file in it. And that folder is called .github/workflows. So I'm going to use the make directory command with the -p flag. That means if the top level directory doesn't already exist, don't fail, create it, and then create the subdirectory. So create .github/workflows. So if I do it, the dot at the beginning of GitHub makes that a hidden folder. So my standard ls command won't show it. If I use -al, you can see that I've actually got a lot of hidden folders, including git modules, .github, .git. So this is the directory I've just created. And if I do ls.github, the workflows directory is underneath. Fabulous. So I'm going to create a YAML file now called cd underneath the .github workflows folder. And then I will open it in my favorite text editor. So I've done a lot of hard work for you and created a workflow file that will do this for you. We just need to copy and paste. But let me just talk through what's going on here. So we have the name section up here, and that is in GitHub's interface what the workflow will be called, so we can find it. This on section defines what triggers the workflow to run. So we have two triggers here. We have push events to the branch main, and you can think of this as when you merge your pull request, you are pushing to your default branch there. So clicking merge is activating this trigger. But we also have a pull request trigger when the target of the pull request, where the pull request will be merged to, is main. So this won't run on all pull requests. It will only run on pull requests that are going to affect the main. So when we open up our pull requests, again, our workflow will be triggered. We then have the jobs section that will define all of the jobs we want to run. We are only running one job. It's called build and deploy site. So then the section that is indented under this defines the entire build and deploy site job. We request the latest version of an Ubuntu machine to run this on. Windows and OS, Mac OS are available too, but Linux is generally quickest and cheapest. And then we define the steps that this is going to take when the job runs. The first step we do is we check out the repository, and this runs the Git clone like we did when we wanted to get a local copy of the repository onto our machine. We have a couple of extra arguments here though. We need to also fetch the submodule, otherwise it won't have the files to be able to build our theme. And I've also set the fetch depth equal to 0. This means it won't fetch all history, just like the latest commit, and that just means it will be a bit quicker. The next step we do is we install Hugo, and this is using an external action. So again, this is a repository on GitHub that you can go and visit, and it will basically install Hugo for you, and you can choose a version. I'm living life on the wild side and using the latest version. The next thing it does is it just runs the Hugo build command, which is a bit different to the one we've been using locally. We've just been executing Hugo by itself, which actually runs the build rather than the serve. And we have this file, this argument called minify, and that's about making the files, compressing the files as small as they need to be, so we don't take up a lot of space on GitHub Server. We then have a section that checks all of our HTML. It conforms to, all of the links are there. We don't have any 400 errors, stuff like that. I do have a continue on error section here. This is because actually this step will fail because I'm not telling you to, for example, put a fav icon into your website at the minute. But this means it won't actually block continuous integration. And we can dig a bit more into that after the demonstration today. And then the last step is again using another external GitHub action, is to publish to GitHub Pages. Specifically, this will create a new branch in our repository called gh-pages, and that's like GitHub convention of where your GitHub pages are deployed from. So a couple of things about this step is that we give a published directory. The output of our build site with Hugo step will be a new directory called public. And that's all you need to publish a file. Those are the static HTML files that build a website. You don't need our README, our license file, our contributing guidelines on that branch. Obviously, you need them on your default branch, but they don't need to be on the branch that's being published. So we just say, please copy this directory onto our GitHub Pages branch. You need a GitHub token to be able to do that. Fantastically, GitHub automatically generates this for you, so you don't need to worry about creating that, and it will have enough permissions to create this branch and push to it. And the last thing I want to point out is this if statement here. That basically says if the event that triggered this workflow run is a push and the reference that is being pushed to is main, then deploy this step. This means we won't deploy to the GitHub Pages branch if this workflow has been triggered by a pull request. We only do it on merge. So that means you can test that the site builds without like constantly updating your live website. So there's a big block of text that is just everything I said, but in words. But this is like our whole GitHub Actions workflow that will deploy our site for us. So I'm just going to copy and paste all of that. And be careful when you do this, because this is a YAML file and white space matters. It's not allowing me to scroll and highlight at the same time. So I'll just zoom out a little bit. Just going to copy and paste that into my open text editor over here and save that. I will bump up that again. So scroll down all of the things I just said. And we're going to repeat that git add, git commit, git push workflow we did before. If I run git status again, the .github folder is red because Git doesn't know about it yet, so we'll add it by doing that. And then if I run git status, it's turned green. Git is now aware there's a new file. I make a commit of that file, which is, and call it add a GitHub Actions workflow to build and deploy the site. GitHub status again, nothing to commit, we're all good. So we git push origin, this time to the add CD branch. Great. So now again, my browser interface is updated automatically. I can click this button to create a new pull request. Give myself a description. To build and deploy the website to GitHub Pages. And now when I create my pull request, give it a second, our workflow is automatically triggered and automatically started running. So I'm going to click on details, and this will take us to the logs of what's happening live. So at the minute, it's just taking its time to set up the job. It's pulling the external, this runs so fast now, but it was like pulling the external HTML checker. It then checked out the repo, it set up Hugo, it built the site, and it checks the HTML. And you'll see it skipped this step, the deploy to GitHub Pages step. This is because it was triggered by a pull request. We've had a little issue with the errors here, with the logs here, but like the site actually passed, the test actually passed, so fabulous. And you can always get to all of your GitHub Actions by clicking the Actions tab at the top of your repo. So now this is passed, I am going to, well, let me refresh to show you that it has in fact passed. I'm going to merge the pull request again. And we'll go back to the Actions tab, and you'll see this has been triggered again because we've pushed to main. So if I click on this and then click on the job, we can see the same set of logs that we just saw previously running again. It will build and check everything. But this time it will actually do the deploy to GitHub Pages step, because this time we've merged the PR. This was a push to main. So now if I go back to code, and if I just make this full screen for a second and click on branches, you'll see we now have that gh-pages branch, and it looks very different to our main branch. And that's because this is all GitHub Pages needs to publish your site. And we didn't create that, the GitHub Action workflow did. So not quite done yet. We need a couple more configurations, and I'm actually going to move back to my incognito tab where I am signed in as Helm Upgrade Bot, because I'm only a actual S Gibson 91. I'm only a collaborator, therefore I don't have access to the settings menu, which is what we need next. We need the branches sub option here, and we're going to add a branch protection rule, which means that the test that runs in our pull request has to pass before you can merge, and this will prevent us merging any broken code that will mean our site doesn't deploy to the main branch. So I'm going to click add rule. The name is main because main is the branch we want to protect. And then I'm going to click require status checks to pass before merging. And status checks are our GitHub Actions. The interface has changed slightly since I made this screenshot. I'm now going to search for my build and deploy sites. And that is the status that's the status check that has to pass. So I'm going to click create. And that now means that our branch is protected and our tests have to pass in pull request before we merge them. Now I'm going to set up the pages, the GitHub pages itself. So I'm going to scroll down, and the second to last option in the menu is pages. And now, right at the beginning, if you remember, I said you don't have to use the terminal. This is where you can like choose your theme in here. And it's also where you set the source of your files. So we're not using the main branch. We are using the gh-pages branch. So we update that. But we are using the root of the repository. There's no like subdirectories or anything there. So I've updated that and click save. And now if I wait a couple of moments and then refresh, GitHub Pages is doing its thing and it says your site is now published, and I can now click my link. And ta-da, my blog is live on the internet. It's still super bare though. So I'm going to now update my local repository again over here by git checkout main git pull. And now we're going to create some content to put on that blog. So again, good git flow, brand new branch, git checkout -b, calling this one added content. First thing I'm going to do is add a profile picture so that I don't have that empty image on the front page. And if I show you my folders, I actually have somewhere a little picture of Helm Upgrade Bot. Here he is, looking all cute. So we're going to use that image. And you can use a graphical user interface to drag and drop this image if you like, or I will do this on the command line. So I give the path to where my image lives. Oh, no, I'm skipping a step. I'm very sorry. So the first thing we need to do is create the directory that it goes in. So we have already the top layer directory called static, and that's a special repository that means when Hugo runs, it won't change the files in there. It will just like import them. Therefore, they're static. It doesn't do anything to them. So underneath static, we create a new folder called images. And this is where we'll keep all of the images we want as content on our blog site. And then I will use the cp command to copy that little logo across into the static images directory. And I'm going to rename it profile pic as well. Again, we need to tell Hugo where our profile picture is. So I open up my config file, and at the bottom, I add the profile picture field, and I say the path is images profile pic. You will notice that I didn't have to specify the static. This is because Hugo knows what to do with the static folder, and it will just sort of like bring the images folder up to the top level when it creates that public directory. So we don't need to provide the static part to that file path. I'm going to save that file, and I'm going to locally look at my website again by running the Hugo Server command. I'm going to open up the link, and I've now got a cute little profile picture on my blog. And I'm going to keep the slang in there, blog in, because I'm cool. So close that down and stop my server by running Control-C. Next thing we're going to do is actually create a blog post. That's like the whole point of doing this. And again, Hugo has a command to do this. This is Hugo new, and you provide the path to where you want your content to live. and it will automatically do the creating of directories for you, and this allows you to section out your website, and these will all be created under the content directory because that is where our content lives. So if I do ls content right now, it is empty, but I'm going to create a new blog post. So Hugo New, it's going to be a blog post, so it should be under a blog directory, and I'm going to call it my first blog .markdown file. So it's created that file. If I run ls content, see it's automatically created the blog directory. And if I do ls content blog, there is the markdown file as well. And if we open up that file, it's not empty. So the reason to use Hugo New rather than just creating a markdown file is that Hugo will automatically generate some front matter, some metadata that it needs to be able to create that blog site. So it's automatically filled in the title as being my first blog, and it's got that from the file name. It's automatically put in a timestamp date from when we ran the command, and it also has this draft equals true. And I'm automatically upgrade that to false. If you leave it as true when you build your site, you'll think something's gone wrong because you'll be like, where's my blog post? Because it doesn't automatically publish drafts. If you're using the GitHub pull request merge kind of workflow, I don't see there's great value in having drafts around. I can imagine, like if you're a big company, lots of people are writing blogs and you're not necessarily deploying in like a Git workflow kind of way, drafts might be useful. But like if you're going to be deploying in this way, I say just always set that to false, and then you won't get confused. So you can edit all of these files from as you wish, but yeah, draft is the one I pay close attention to. So then I'm going to write my little message. It's going to say hello world, and I'm going to include an emoji of the world. And I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to edit my config once again. And the section I'm going to add, it's called main sections. And that's why it was important that the blog directory was created under the content directory. Those are our sections. And this just says, please put these sections onto the home page, basically. So I save that and I run Hugo Server again. Open up the local host link. And my blog has been published, and as promised, emojis have been rendered. And you can click through to that, but it's still quite a minimalistic blog at the moment. So I'm going to close this and stop my server with Control-C. So external content. Like the beauty of using Markdown is that it's really simple. You can just type. But often blogs contain more than that. They might have like video links, tweets, images. And when we were using Jekyll, like Markdown isn't always very well suited to including that. And when using Jekyll, you had to like generate your own HTML. And in this screenshot, you can see how like nasty that looks. Hugo has something called shortcodes automatically built in, and it will like deal with all of this HTML for you. So I published a really self-important looking tweet claiming how cool Helm Upgrade Bot is a couple of weeks ago to demonstrate this shortcode. So to include this tweet in our blog, all we need is the numeric part of the URL. And then the syntax, the shortcode for embedding this is 2 sets of curly braces and the angular brackets. And then we just say tweet, and we include the tweet ID. And then Hugo knows to go to Twitter and pull that information down. So to embed this specific tweet I made a couple of weeks ago, this is all we need. So I'm going to open up my blog post again. I am going to add the shortcode with the numeric part of the URL, save, and then run Hugo Server again. Open up the local host. And it looks like it's already pulled the text into like the summary section of the blog. But if we click through, this should in a second render as an interactive tweet card. So I've included a couple of links to other shortcodes that you'll find useful. There's ref and relref for linking between GitHub, your blog pages. There's figure for if you want to include an image that's not like in your static images directory. If you do want to include an image that's in your static image directory, you can do it using the normal image, normal markdown syntax for including an image. And if you're feeling super brave, you can actually create your own shortcodes in Hugo. And that's something I've done to be able to embed my public Google Calendar and my Twitter timeline. So I've created a link if you're interested there. So again, we're going to do this git add commit push open pull request merge workflow. So I'll just stop my server. Git status, modified my config. I've added content and static. So git add everything, please. Create a commit. Add the first blog post. And then git, oh no, I made a mistake there. There we go. Now I've closed my double quotes. Now git push origin adding content, and that will trigger the browser interface to generate another pull request for us. So add a hello world blog post with an embedded tweet. And then while I'm waiting for our continue. Yes.
Sarah, I just want to give you a time check. You've only got 3 minutes until 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I do. And this is the last step anyway. So while I'm running, while CD is automatically running, I'm going to update my local. And then this will hopefully merge, but basically this is what we did before. This is the continuous deployment step. It will make that blog post with our embedded tweet live. So while waiting for CD, I'll just like go through the conclusion section. Oh, there we go, that's merged. That's passed, so I will merge that. And I will give GitHub Pages a couple of minutes to deploy. But what we've done is we've set up a GitHub repository using Hugo. It's inbuilt site template, and we've installed a theme via Git submodules. We've added a continuous deployment pipeline that automatically builds and publishes our website for us. And we've created a new post using Hugo, and we've added content, including our profile picture and embedded content from external sources as well. So from here, you can continue to use like this setup as it is. You can further customize by editing the config.toml file, and you can see the documentation for the Anatoly theme or my website itself for examples on how to do that. Or you can try implementing a new theme. They're listed on the themes.hugo.io website, and you rerun the git submodule command and then update your config.toml file to say which theme you're using. But that might cause breaking changes because some things I've done in this tutorial are theme specific. So let me just check that this is now up to date. Live on the website, my first blog with a tweet. which will render and is all interactive and everything. Thank you so much. I hope that was useful.